Joining us now for a closer look at this situation is Jason Meister, a political strategist and a member of the Trump 2020 Advisory Board. So, Jason, I want to start with the Flynn case in particular, because there was this new development put into it where the judge appointed a third party, essentially, to come in and really make the compelling arguments on the other side of this case. It's something that a lot of people say shouldn't be allowed, but it's what's going on. And in fact, he wants to have that brief to the court by June 10th. What do you make of this whole situation?
It's completely unfair and it's political. There's no reason to have an amicus brief asking an opinion from another outsider to come in and give their brief as to why they think General Flynn is responsible for any of his actions. The Attorney General Barr made it very clear that they wanted to drop this case, and what they've done to General Flynn is atrocious. It shouldn't happen to any star general or any American, for that matter, in the rest of history. It should never happen again.
And I also want to ask you about the media's coverage of this event, too, because there's been multiple events in the past couple of months where people can simply see that there's bias when it comes to whatever issue it may be. We could take the Tara Reade allegation, for example, and compare how the media used it against Kavanaugh and compare it with how they're using it against Biden right now. I mean, it's night and day when you look at those things. And then when we look at the General Flynn case as well, a lot of people saying, oh, well, this is a distraction from the current White House response. This is something that conservatives have been talking about for the better part of 3 years. This isn't anything new that is just being propped up at the last minute. What do you make of the media's coverage of the Flynn case?
100% what you just said is accurate. The media has been covering the Russia collusion narrative for 3.5 years. And the fact that they're saying that this is a distraction from the coronavirus or coverage of the coronavirus is ridiculous. They don't want to talk about the collusion narrative that was concocted by the Obama administration and basically framing an incoming president and a transition team, framing a three-star general, and basically ruining people's lives, destroying their lives and their families. This is the story of our time. We need to cover this story. And there's a lot of questions that we still don't have answered.
And I think that's the whole point of the investigation, too. In fact, Attorney General Bill Barr saying earlier today that John Durham's investigation will likely result in some criminal referrals. I want to get he said he adds potential criminality in the probe is focused on others, that being not former President Barack Obama or former Vice President Joe Biden. But that does suggest that he has his eyes set on some people who did wrongdoing and that criminal liability may be coming that way. What do you make of the announcement this morning by Attorney General Barr?
Yeah, so I did look at those words very closely, and he said some very important things. He said that the entire collusion narrative was concocted. The media was complicit. It was abhorrent what happened to this president, and it should never happen again in history. But there are legalities that we have to look at, and that's going to be left up to the Durham investigation, the criminal investigation that Durham is looking into. And he did specify that there are others that they're looking at in criminality. Now, I do think that we are getting ahead of ourselves to say that Biden and Obama are off and they're free and that they're not responsible for what happened in participating in what happened. I don't think that that's what Bill Barr said. I think he said, as of right now, the information that I've received, that I've looked at, would not indicate to me that there would be a reason for a criminal investigation into those two men. But I would not, by any stretch of the imagination, say that they're off the hook or that they're not responsible or participated in concocting this narrative.
That is very interesting. And it's kind of interesting, too, when I look at the criticisms coming at this investigation from some people who say it's a conspiracy theory. But a lot of those people are the same ones that were telling us that there was Russia collusion with the Trump administration for literally 3 years, only to get the results back from not only Robert Mueller's investigation, but the Senate Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, all saying that it was completely untrue. It's something that is very interesting to me that they even have the audacity to call someone else a conspiracy theorist for even paying attention to this latest thing, which public health officials, national officials are now saying is actually a real thing. Do you think that the American voters will take this into consideration come November?
I think that the voters have to take this into consideration, and they have to take into consideration what the Obama administration did by weaponizing the intelligence agencies against the opposition party. But I want to go back to something you just said. The media and the people that were a part of concocting this collusion narrative, they're the conspiracy theorists. And they're the ones that projecting that on the conservatives and the Trump campaign officials. But they're conspiracy theorists for creating this collusion narrative.
Yeah, and of course, when you look back and you confront them with those facts, they'll say, well, we were following information that was there. That's what a conspiracy theory is. It's half-truths the entire way to paint a picture that does seem believable. I mean, if no part of a conspiracy theory is believable, it's a bad conspiracy theory. You're going to dismiss it right away, but that's exactly what they were doing, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the case of General Michael Flynn, is selective leaks with selective information to paint a narrative in the media. And now we see that behind closed doors in those House intelligence transcripts, that those public officials who are saying one thing on television to the public, we're saying a very different thing behind closed doors. It's very
they could not have done it without the biased media. The biased media was complicit in pushing this narrative for 3.5 years with the New York Times headlines, Russia agent, Putin agent, agent of Russia, all of it complete nonsense, complete narrative, collusion narrative. And terrible.
And some of them who were responsible for it got a nice gig on some of those networks too afterwards. So, Jason Meister, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, breaking down this situation for us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.